You only start college once, and if you get the first year wrong, you'll regret it for the rest of your time there. I had no guide, so here are 10 specific things I wish someone told me before I started. And even if you're in high school or almost graduated, there is no time you cannot apply these tips. Do even one of these tomorrow and you'll be ahead of 90% of other students. Getting into number one, most quote-unquote friends are disposable. Now, before you get mad at me for this, just hear me out. You see, in high school, you're stuck with the same kids for 4 years, right? And then when you get to the workplace, you're stuck with the same coworkers for many years. But in college, I feel like the whole social scene resets, right? At any time, you can literally rebuild your circle from scratch. And most people don't take advantage of that. I think you need to think about building your circle almost like dating, right? With every single person you meet, you need to ask, what do they add to my life? And this could mean something business-wise, academic, or even fun, right? Does this person give you energy? Does this person make your life better? And if the answer is no, you need to be very decisive, right? You cannot drag people along out of comfort. You need to drop them and start scanning for someone new quickly. So that's why I say people are disposable in that sense in college. You can treat it like dating. You can test people, swap circles, pivot fast, because the people you surround yourself with in college have the biggest leverage on your life. Now, straight into number two. Classes are harder, but it's easier to do well. Now, first of all, I want you to get it out of your head that college classes are somehow easier than high school. I heard this all the time in high school, and it's just not true. The material is harder, it moves faster, and you'll get buried if you don't adapt. What is different is that college classes are way more predictable. Professors basically hand you the exam formula if you're paying attention. So for example, I took this physics class that's notorious at my school. The average grade in this class is a C. And the first lecture, the professor said, rework my lecture problems until you can solve them without looking. And he probably said this like 5 times. And sure enough, our first exam was almost identical to his lecture problems. In high school, our review packets were basically just suggestions, at least in my school, right? The real exams were full of trick questions, curveballs. In college, you have to understand that professors don't have time to reinvent the wheel for all 300 students. They're just going to recycle what they already teach because they're more interested in their research. So yeah, classes are harder, you're willing to study more. But doing well is easier if you listen for what your professor repeats, actually focus on their examples, and like basically memorize review packets. That's the formula to beat the average. And using this, I actually got a higher GPA in my engineering classes in college than I ever got in high school. So that's a bit of proof there. Now, tip number 3, you must have a TMS or time management system. This might sound boring, but it's probably the most important tip in this entire video. So pay attention. In college, you are busy as hell. If high school felt busy, you have not seen anything yet. Between classes, clubs, assignments, and also trying to have a social life, you will drown unless you build systems to block out distraction. You can only fulfill your potential if you protect your time. Now here's a trap. At the start of the year, you have a lot of motivation, right? You feel fresh, you want to prove yourself, and for the first few weeks, I guarantee you will stay on top of your classes and everything. But then real college life kicks in, right? Assignments pile up, exams are just coming faster and faster, and your friend group also wants to hang out, and suddenly you are behind. And when that happens, you think the problem is a lack of motivation. But it is not. It is your systems. There's a great book, you probably read it. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And in this book, he says, do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And in college, distraction will eat you alive if your only system is relying on willpower. Now, I struggled with this hard in college, right? I would sit down for physics homework, and then within 10 minutes, I was on YouTube or Reddit. I told myself I was going to study, but my environment was built for distraction. And every freshman I know falls into the same loop. Work feels overwhelming, so you procrastinate, and then you feel guilty, and then you distract yourself even more. And before you know it, you've wasted weeks and you're behind. Now, one of the simplest systems you can build to change this is a screen time blocker. If you think about it, your computer is probably the #1 source of distraction in college aside from your phone. You can have the best intentions, but if YouTube or Reddit is one click away, you will lose hours every single day. And a blocker takes that choice off the table. Now the problem is most blockers are pretty dumb. They either block everything or they do nothing. And they cannot tell the difference between productive work and wasting time. And that's why I'm happy to announce that over the last 3 months, I've actually been building my own screen time blocker, and I'm calling it Time Slicer. It's a screen time blocker that actually looks at what you're doing, not just the site. So if I'm on YouTube watching a calculus tutorial, it stays open. But if I'm watching a Minecraft video when I'm supposed to be studying, it blocks it. And everything it does is aligned to a set of goals I set for the day. Now, I'll be honest with you, this app that I built changed my life. I've gained back over 15 hours a week every single week since I started using it. That is like an extra class or a part-time job, or all the time you need to hit the gym or stay on top of school. And over 4 years of college, that's literally years of your life. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because the first year sets the pattern in college. If you let distraction define your systems, that sticks. But if you lock in from the start, you'll be ahead of almost everyone else around you. I do not want you to waste that one shot you get at starting right. So just for you guys, I've opened up this app that I built, Time Slicer, for you guys to try. This is not a sponsorship. I literally built this for myself because nothing else worked. And I promise if you actually set this up and use it, you will feel the difference within 1 week. Now, number 4, roommates matter way more than you think. Now, I know a lot of you probably already picked your roommates, but the real advice is do not confuse boundaries of roommates with friendship. So you're friends with people you respect. And if your roommate sucks, you don't have to be their friend, right? When I started, I was pretty lucky in college. I found my roommates on Instagram, they all seemed chill, and to be fair, I didn't really know either of them before college. They were new people. But the first week, we set strict ground rules with each other. And because of that, things worked. Over time, we actually became really good friends. My roommates became some of my closest friends in college. But the key was that our ground rules came first, then our friendship followed. And here's why this matters. In college, your dorm has to be stable. It's the only private place you really have. So if it's chaos, you cannot function. You're in a small space, and whatever your roommates do bleeds into your life, even if you don't notice it. So in my case, I like to sleep pretty late, and one of my roommates liked to wake up really early. So there were nights when I was up way too late, and you know what? He called me out. He told me to shut down my computer and move to the lounge. And I respected that, and in return, he respected what I needed. That's how it works. So the takeaway is pretty simple here. Set ground rules with your roommates and really enforce them. Be strict with your roommates. Do not do like our Gen Z chill thing where you can't just let everything slide. Your room is really important, and if you don't protect it, the rest of your college life is going to fall apart. Now, for number 5, dining halls are OP. Now, here's the reality. Regardless of the food quality, most people in college eat completely alone in silence in the dining hall, just scrolling on their phones. This happens consistently after 1 or 2 months. If you look around, it's like a scene out of WALL-E, and I fell into this too. My second quarter was pretty rough. I drifted away from my first friend group, and I ended up eating most meals by myself. And honestly, it was pretty depressing. What I eventually realized is that the dining hall is the easiest place to meet people in college. Everyone has to eat, and nobody wants to be the person always sitting alone, but most people are just scared to make the first move and talk to someone. So here is a system I started using that was transformational. Every meal at the dining hall, I sat with someone new. Now, I know this sounds like the most difficult thing ever, so here's exactly how you do it. First, when you walk into the dining hall, look for people who just sat down with their food, right? Don't pick someone who's almost done eating because they'll leave right away. Now, I want you to walk up before getting your food and say, hey, is this seat taken? They'll say no, right? And then say, mind if I join you? I've never had someone turn me down ever, not even once if they're alone. Now, from there, get your food, come back and then keep it simple. Ask their name, ask where they're from, and if there's multiple dining halls on campus, a great question is, which dining hall do you usually eat at, right? These are tiny openers that are enough to spark a real conversation. Now, if you do want a full breakdown on how to actually talk to people and keep these conversations flowing, I actually have a whole video on social skills. I'll link it up here in the description. You can watch it after that. But yeah, doing this one thing changed my life. I met my entire current friend group this way, and some of them are literally now helping me lead our school's entrepreneurship club that I run. None of that would have happened if I kept eating alone. So don't waste meals scrolling on your phone, use the dining hall, and if 9 out of 10 conversations go nowhere, that 1 in 10 could actually define your entire college experience. That is what I noticed. All right, advice number 6, join just one club. In high school, joining 5 or 6 clubs kind of made sense, right? They were small, low stakes, and honestly, half of the time it was just resume padding. But see, college clubs are a different beast. Some of them have hundreds of members and budgets in the tens of thousands. If you spread yourself across 5 different clubs, you'll barely make a dent in any of them. You'll just be a name on the club roster. The smart smarter move is hone in on just one club you really care about and go all in on it. Show up to every meeting, meet the officers, take on small responsibilities wherever you can. And if you do that, you'll stand out immediately because most people join and they just disappear after 2 weeks. Now, by the end of the first year, you'll have built up enough trust to land a leadership role. And that one leadership position will do more for your college career, your resume, and your network than just hopping between a bunch of random clubs. And that's exactly what I did. I joined the entrepreneurship club at UC Santa Cruz. I went every week, I talked to people, I helped with events, and by the end of the year, I was literally running meetings. And from that one club, I've built my closest network in college. I've gotten real opportunities and found people to work with me on my business, including mentors. None of that would have happened if I was just spreading my time across 5 different clubs. So here's the rule. In college, do not spread yourself thin. Prioritize depth over breadth. Pick one club, commit to it fully, and then make it yours. And if you do that, that club will carry you much further than 5 half-hearted commitments ever will. All right, advice number 7. Most of your college classes are useless, and that's exactly the point. I know that sounds harsh, but let's be honest, in the age of AI, most of the content in your classes is replaceable. You can ask ChatGPT to explain a programming concept better than a professor, or you can watch a free lecture online that covers the exact same thing. So if you measure the value of college by how much raw knowledge you gain, you're going to be disappointed. But I found that the real value is that classes force you to struggle. They force you to juggle assignments, manage deadlines, and solve problems under pressure. That pressure is what actually builds systems, resilience, and mental toughness. And I think these are the main skills that I've taken away from college. I've taken classes that have nothing to do with my business or what I want to pursue long term. But those same classes forced me to work harder and smarter than I ever did in high school. They taught me how to plan, how to deal with stress, and still show up even when I didn't feel like it. And none of that stuff is really a hard skill. It's a soft skill. It doesn't show up in a textbook, but it is the part that actually sticks with you. So I would honestly say don't waste time questioning whether every lecture or assignment has direct value. Let's be real, 95% of stuff is useless. The value of classes is the structure and the resilience that it forces you to build. I had to run my business in half the time that I would have had just because I had the pressure of classes, and that pressure really helped me a lot. Now, a bit of a lead on here, but advice number 8 is fear stagnation. Now, this advice goes deeper than college. I think it's really about human nature. Most people have a tendency to just treat long stretches of time as disposable, right? You think, I'll just get through this semester, or once I finish this year, and then they're like just putting off the things they want to do because they just think that some amounts of time are time they have to get through. Now, what happens is you end up coasting. Weeks turn into months turn into years, and once you kind of solidify this mindset, it's hard to break it. And I caught myself doing this in high school. Right? There's long stretches where I wasn't building anything, I wasn't prioritizing, I wasn't strategizing. I was just waiting, right? I was waiting for applications to start, I was waiting for college to start, I was just waiting for the next thing. And looking back, sure, that time was fun, on paper I had a lot of fun, but it really is the times that I regret the most because nothing from that time mattered, right? I just floated. So when I got to college, I told myself I would not repeat that mistake, and I've seen the difference. Most people, they treat freshman year as disposable, right? They're saying, oh, just a year where I'll settle in, I'll explore my options, and I'll start later. But this later never comes, right? If you treat your first year as a warm-up, you've already lost 1/4 of your entire college life. See, the truth is, what I've realized is you don't get many stretches of time where you're young, you're surrounded by a bunch of opportunity, and you can just take whatever risks you want with little downside. I think college is one of those times. And if you just coast through it and don't actively strategize, that time is gone forever. So here is a mindset shift for you to consider. Every semester and every year is the real thing. There is no warm-up time in college. There is no disposable time. If you ever feel like you're just going through the motions, if you ever feel like you're just saying, oh, I need to get through the next 2 weeks or get through the next month, that is evidence of stagnation, and it will bleed into every part of your life. You see, it doesn't really matter what you did in high school. College resets that bar. No one really cares. What matters is if you keep building now. So don't settle, don't wait for the next thing, because the next thing never comes if you coast. Now, advice number 9, hot take, but parties are the biggest scam in college. I'm not saying you can't have fun. You should go to a couple just to see what they're like. But once you've seen it, don't fall into a cycle. Because if you actually pay attention, parties are not about socializing. People aren't making new friends, they're not building connections. Most people are just clumped up with the same people they already know, and the only thing that really happens there is people fiending for alcohol. I remember one party where we literally wasted 30 minutes on the bus, then had to walk another 30 across the city. Then we got in too early, so we went to this weird club place and took pictures until the party started. Then we walked another 30 minutes to the party. It was in this spa sauna place. And then when we arrived, there was no music, no vibe, nothing. It was just a bunch of people, like 1,000 people, just shuffling around trying to find the nearest bottle. Now, some of my friends snuck a shot or two, and that was the highlight. We literally spent 5 hours for this, for my friends to get a few shots, and we headed back. And this is a consistent reality with parties. So yeah, go to a few, get the experience. They look fun enough on the outside, but do not get trapped in a loop of drinking, partying, forgetting everything, and then wasting the next day, because it really isn't worth it in the long run. You may disagree with me, but this is number one. All right, advice number 10, be excited. You see, in high school, most days felt like a slog. Right? You woke up, you went to class that you didn't want to be in, you came home drained, and you kind of just counted down the hours until the day ended. I'm sure you've experienced this. I felt like this every single week. And it was depressing because you kind of feel like you're waiting for life to start a lot of the times. I think college should be the opposite. No one is forcing you to be in college, right? You picked it, I hope. You're learning things you actually care about, again, I hope. And you're surrounded by people your age in an environment that has, I'd say, more freedom than you'd ever have again. And due to this, I think there's zero reason to treat college like something you just get through, right? The truth is you're going to work a lot harder in college. I've genuinely worked more in this first year here than all 4 years of high school combined, no exaggeration. But the difference is it doesn't feel like punishment to me anymore. It feels exciting because that work that you call slowly transforms into things that matter. It transforms into clubs you care about, projects you're proud of, and people you actually want to spend time with. So I'd say this past year has definitely been the most fulfilling year of my life. And it's not because everything was perfect, but because I approached it with energy, right? Even hard days felt worth it because I wasn't dreading work. I wasn't resenting assignments. I actually liked the bigger picture of where I was headed. And I think that's the mindset I want to leave you with. Don't let your college life become another 4 years of waiting for the next thing. If you can wake up excited, if you can treat every day like an opportunity instead of just a chore, I think you'll get more out of the years of college than anyone else around you. And I've only been here 1 year, but I truly think that's the difference that separates a forgettable college experience from, I'd say, the best years of my life. I definitely had one of the best years of my life last year. So that's 10 pieces of advice for your first year of college. If you take anything away from this video, it's that your systems decide everything. That's why I built TimeSlicer. It's free to try. The link is in the description. Download it, set it up, and don't waste your first year drowning in distraction. You only start college once, so make sure you start it right.